Now, it's not just something that Plato pulls out of his hat, that there are three distinct parts of the soul, of the mind, but rather he gives an argument, he gives a proof that there are three parts. And while we're not going to spend a lot of time on this argument, we're not even going to reconstruct it formally, we will go through it for a second just to make sure we understand where this whole idea is coming from and why he thinks there are three distinct parts of the soul, because he uses that to then move from, he starts in metaphysics about what kinds of things exist. He has many arguments that we didn't look at for the soul's existing, and now he comes up with the parts of the soul, and the three parts of the soul are going to lead us right from metaphysics to ethics. And here are the considerations that he weighs to come to his conclusion that there are three parts of the soul. He points out, look, a man may be thirsty but's unwilling to drink. We could imagine that it's a soldier in a time of war. He's been shot through the stomach, and the doctor says don't let the guy drink even though he's really, really very thirsty, because he's going to hurt himself, and even it's going to damage his internal organs. And I think the conclusion that one is drawn to from this consideration is that one part of the soul is the reflective, kind of the thinking part of the soul. It reasons, and that's the one that prevents the person from drinking, that makes him unwilling to drink. And on the other hand, there's another part of the soul that actually does the feeling. So there's a part of the soul that has the appetite. It feels pleasure, feels pain. So that's where the thirst is coming from. So notice there's this conflict between what one part of the soul is trying to tell us and the other side. And remember, the soul, according to Plato, is what makes us different from animals. So even if you don't, even if you think it's kind of a little bit odd to think that there are these ghost-like things running around these souls, nonetheless, he's talking about, the different parts of the mind and how the mind works, and he's pointing out that part of the mind, or one aspect, is reason, and another part of the mind is the thing that has feelings, appetites. I mean, you could give another example. I certainly think you've seen enough cases where people who really desire the company of another person, maybe of the opposite sex, but when you look at it, you're wondering, where is the reasoning? Because all it is this relationship is just destructive, so why does your friend continue it on? So it's the considerations for thinking that there are at least two distinct parts of the soul. And then Plato asks us, or one consideration he has to get us in thinking in this direction is, look, there are some times where we desire preferred pleasures, but we're angry that we desire them, regardless of what is. I mean, if you want to think the guy's, let's say the guy's completely out of control. He has these desires to be a pedophile, to push himself on a child. But furthermore, when he thinks about it, he's extremely embarrassed. In fact, my brother is an attorney, used to do criminal law, and on occasion defended people who had these problems, and even who had been, who had preyed upon, sexually preyed upon adolescents, and many of them really were very angry with themselves. That is, they couldn't control this need to have this pleasure, but they realized that what they were doing was was harmful, and they were really angry at themselves for not controlling it. So you have the feeling of pleasure from the perverted desire, which comes, that's your appetite, the feeling is driving it, but anger is in conflict with that you're angry that you have these feelings even though you can't control them. And now, the final piece is to show that anger and reason aren't the same thing. And a consideration that Plato raises is that children have tantrums before they reach the age of reason. When they're little kids, they want something, they'll get on the floor and have a tantrum, in part because they're really angry that they want it, but reason doesn't hold them out. That is, so it looks like anger and reason aren't generated in the same way by the soul. And remember, the soul is the thing that actually enables you to be a self-moving individual. Now, so we get the idea of the three parts of the soul. So where does that take us? I mean, it takes us, notice, and let's back up for a second, the divided line, or the ontology, that the metaphysics that Plato sets up, leads him into conclusions about epistemology. In fact, it helps him, find a place for knowledge and explain knowledge. Well, now the three parts of the soul that he's come to realize are going to bring him to certain conclusions about ethics, and his theory is justice. Justice is the harmony in the soul. We have the three parts of the soul: reason, appetite, and anger. And when our soul is in harmony, the parts are in harmony, we're in a good state, a state of justice. That is what we're trying to accomplish. That's the way we want our soul to be. And how do we get this state of harmony? Reason needs to rule. Go back to the analogy of the charioteer and the two horses. Reason, the charioteer, needs to direct the horses to go where they're going. So that's what justice is. It's harmony of the soul that's maintained by reason. That is, reason should direct the other and control the other parts of the soul. And that's what the ethical ideal is.